Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we want you to thrive in the ministry God has called you to. We truly believe that God's placement has purpose, and we're here for you with encouragement and tools for the journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson. Thanks for joining us today. Well, I'm really excited to share this interview with you. We actually recorded it back in June, so I'm really excited that you finally get to hear it. It's with two people who I love very dearly, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and they joined me by phone from Nashville. And something that you maybe don't know that I wanted to share is that they created the music bed for our intros and outros for the podcast, and Jesse did the voiceovers. So if you recognize his voice, that's where it came from. But anyways, without further ado, I just want to welcome Jesse and Alta Keller.
Thanks again for having us. We're Jesse and Elta. Like you said, we are in Nashville. We're both musicians here. Have a couple different artist projects, as well as doing some producing, and Jesse is doing some engineering.
All the Nashville things.
Yes.
All of the music things at once. And we're loving it. We've lived here for about 2 years. And just about 2 months ago, we had our first little baby. His name is Navy. He's the sweetest little baby boy. And he's soundly sleeping right now, so I'm hoping that he continues for the next
30 minutes.
30 minutes. I told him you need to sleep for the podcast. So
Yes. Come on, Navy, you can do it.
yeah. So we're in the process of adjusting to life as parents, and what does that look like when we primarily work from home, and how do we get things done, as well as take care of a tiny human.
Yeah, the last 5 months has been, we bought a house in December, and so it's been a process of renovating and moving and Alta growing a baby inside of
Yes.
trying to continue writing and doing other projects and tearing down the studio, putting the studio back up temporarily, tearing the studio down, setting it up finally in its correct place, and like all of those things. And so the last couple weeks has honestly felt amazing, just because it's kind of been the first time in the last 6 months where we've felt like, okay, we can kind of try to get into a swing of things again and figure out how we work with the three of us and how we are a family of the three of us and all of those kind of things. Meanwhile, like, still trying to pursue what we want to be pursuing and staying focused where we need to be focused, and all of those things that come with just figuring out how to be a family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process for sure, but I think it's such a beautiful thing to grow as a family and to like figure out your new rhythm, even though it's hard, and I'm sure you're tired. But just it's such a beautiful thing, and something that is unique to you, like unique to the Keller family, and you guys find your rhythm and your groove, and that's just, I don't know, I think it's really special and really neat. So
when I was a kid, and when you're growing up, you don't really think about like necessarily the family dynamic of your parents, or what did my parents do when I was a baby, or stuff like that. And so it's kind of bringing up all of those, trying to remember situations. Like the other day we were recording and Alta was in the booth singing, and I was holding Navy hitting record, and like he was crying. My mic was muted so she couldn't hear him crying, but it was just like this, it was kind of a beautiful thing of like, oh yeah, he's gonna grow up like with us, and we're just kind of bringing him along with us, and it's fun figuring out how we are now three people and not letting our life get completely derailed, but like making the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been just convicted in my own life lately, especially in the last couple of months with all of the change and all of the new and busy, to just really embrace the moments and to like dwell in them. And like you're saying, you just, here's the moment and we're going to make the most of it and enjoy it and love bouncing this baby or, or whatever. And it's not that everything is like perfect and wonderful and happy all the time. It's not that. It's just a mindset for me of being reminded to like embrace those moments and not get frustrated by them. Because, for us with 3 kids, those moments are changing all the time. And there's always something that, let's do this, let's do that. So just embracing those. And yeah, it's really special and really sweet. So I would love for our listeners to hear a little bit more about your journey and, whatever you want to share to encourage people. But just, I think that your story of how God has been developing deep roots in you and what he's been teaching you about that on your journey over the last few years, I think will just be a huge encouragement to people. So I was wondering if the both of you would share a little bit about where God has you now and kind of what he's been doing as he's walked you through just some transition and just life the last bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, quick little snapshot. We've been married. It'll be 9 years in February, which is kind of crazy. We both met in school, both doing music. I was doing an engineering degree, and even from like we got married right after we graduated, and then 3 months later we moved to Texas for 2 years and worked at a church there, and then we're back in Minneapolis for 5 years, kind of doing all the things while trying to pursue music, not necessarily in a church setting, but writing and making music that inspires people perhaps who would never set foot in the inside the doors of a church. And we started a company during that time, and now we've been here about coming up on 2 years and really wholeheartedly pursuing writing and recording, and me trying to do more producing and engineering work for other artists. And so kind of at the heart of that whole journey has been a battle between striving and being content with the journey. And I think it honestly just takes time for us to be okay with that. Because, I mean, as a younger punk kid coming out of college, I probably said something like, I'm going to give it 2 years. I'm going to blow up in 2 years, or I'm going to write a number 1 hit single for someone, or our band is going to blow up, or whatever. But the reality of it for most of us in this life is the fact that we're more on a journey of figuring out how to get where we want to get, but also not letting the length of the journey disappoint us to the extent of like forgetting who we are and where our value is. So that's kind of been the heart of our journey. Kind of a spiritual and emotional battle, but also like the battle of the physical, what we want to be doing. Like, okay, we're battling wanting to do music not in a church, even though we love the Lord with our whole heart, but how do we like balance that battle as well? And so I think we've gotten to the point of being very just content in the journey, and holding on to things really loosely, and also not letting them define who we are, because I mean, who knows where we'll be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. I think I always was holding so tightly to my dreams and what I wanted to do, but I think in the last few years I've realized that, okay, if what I want right now isn't actually what God wants, and somehow I've missed it. He loves me enough to take me through a journey of myself getting to a different place and realizing, you know what, maybe I don't want that anymore. And he will shift my heart, because he is a good father, and he's just wanting us to get closer to him through the whole journey. And so I think when I realized that, there was like not this like lingering, oh man, am I going to be disappointed in 10 years when I still haven't made it? Like that kind of gone, because instead of the idea of, oh man, what if I'm disappointed? It was, oh man, I'm going to be doing something that God really does have planned for me, and I'm going to love it because he's shifting my heart toward what his heart is, throughout the process.
Yeah, and I think that kind of has been the battle for both of us. Of even from a young age, both of us knew we wanted to be in music somehow, and I think that God does put in your heart dreams and desires of where he wants to lead you. But it's easy to, over time, as you get older, to question, like, is that really what he wants? But like Jesse said, I think that God is so gracious to shift us and move us towards the direction that he wants. And I've spent a lot of time questioning of like, God, is it true? Do you want me in music? Do you want me to be doing this? Because things aren't taking off as quickly as I thought, or the opportunities that I thought I have different ones instead. But learning that God's timing is perfect. And when I can look back and see the results of the pursuit of music that we've been on, all the things that have grown in us and in the people we've been in relationship with have all been good because of this journey. And it hasn't, there's been some sad things and some heartache, but they have also grown up into like beautiful pieces of our life because of where music has led us. And I remember when we lived in Minneapolis, we had been there about 5 years. And like Jesse said, we started a company, an espresso bar catering company that kind of just took off from underneath us. We didn't really plan on it being any sort of full-time thing, but it ended up being full-time for both of us, which was awesome. And just provided for us and allowed us to have the freedom to make music when we wanted to and stuff like that. But it was just going amazing. And we kept feeling like I was struggling because I felt so grateful for that, but also frustrated because music kind of seemed like it was going nowhere. And as our coffee business was growing, I had to put more and more attention towards that and just feeling frustrated. And I remember and I feel like I've told like all my friends this story because it was such a profound moment for me. But I remember I was reading the story in the Bible about Lazarus and Mary and Martha sending word to Jesus that Lazarus was sick and they wanted him to come heal him. And in that moment, Jesus, being both God and man, I'm imagining had some battle in his mind where he knew, as God, I'm not going to go heal him because in the future I'm going to raise him from the dead, and it's going to be even more incredible and the results are going to be bigger and greater. But in the moment, I imagine as Mary and Martha's friend that he was feeling like just sick to his stomach, having to say, I'm not coming to heal him. And he tells them he's not coming, and then arrives days later after Lazarus is dead, and Mary and Martha come and are just asking him, why didn't you come and heal him? And it was so profound to me that in that moment, he was so human and so connected in relationship to the people around him that he felt that with them. He felt the pain because he knew that his choice of not healing him in the moment was causing pain. But he also knew the greater things that were to come, but he couldn't share them with them yet. And he couldn't tell them, like, I'm going to raise them from the dead. He had to kind of just rest in that timing that God had already set in motion. And that spoke to me so much that in that moment, Jesus, he cried with them. And I imagine he really had true heartbreak because of the situation and knew that it was so painful for his friends. And he was just in that moment with him, even though the results were going to be so great in the end. He sat in that moment of sadness and disappointment and fear of what the future would be like. And then days later, he got to celebrate with them when he did the miracle, but he just sat in the moment with them. And that kind of like carried me through that season of feeling like, God, what are you doing? Why am I like struggling so much in this one area, but you are fulfilling all these like great financial things in this other area. I'm just feeling disappointed and heartbroken about one side of what I thought you wanted me to be doing. And that revelation has kind of carried me into this next season of us getting to put in some roots and settle into really honestly living our dream, even though it's still a slow process of growing our careers as musicians and figuring out what that looks like. There's been such a like rest and space for me to sit in the moments and just soak it up with the Lord, knowing that his process is so much greater and his time is so much greater than I can comprehend and that I know. And for the things that I'm believing for miracles, I know that he's working in them and he's already orchestrating all the pieces. I just can't be blinded by what's literally right in front of me. Just realizing he's so close, he's so near, he's in it with us. And I think that for both of us, that's kind of been the last 2 years. We've had so much more time than we ever have to just spend time being with the Lord and have a really good routine of what that looks like every day for us. And we became part of a church here that we just love, that's really like spoken into us spiritually, and getting to connect with people and make relationships that way. I feel like we've been kind of in a greenhouse situation where God has just kind of set up the perfect environment for us to grow. And it hasn't been all like cotton candy and fluffy.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of sad things too, and changes with moving and all of that. But it's resulted in so much growth in who we are and getting to put down those deep roots, realizing that that is what is important. And I don't think that God is out there wanting to just be a genie and like, I'm just here to fulfill dreams. I don't think that is who he is. I think that he works in partnership with us to accomplish his kingdom principles and his work through us. And sometimes that is in partnership with what our dreams look like. And sometimes it's him saying, I want you to lay this down and I'm going to actually move you and shift you to this part of your life. But it's all good and it's all filled with joy. And there's so much grace for us in that when we're kind of feeling stubborn or resisting. He's so gracious to help us get to the spot we need to be.
It's such a beautiful story to sit on this end and, listen, because obviously I've been along, for the journey. I know you guys pretty well. And, it's beautiful. And what I see from my perspective is that you guys have been faithful with what's been set in front of you, and whatever that is, whatever small thing's been set in front of you, you're faithful to say, okay, Lord, here, I'll take this and I'll do this. But then also you have been so rooted in him that you're unafraid to take the faith jumps when he asks you to. And I've seen that in you guys, with just over the last 2 years with all the new things, like you said, moving and everything. And maybe it didn't make sense to other people, but it doesn't matter because this is what God set before you, and you're faithful in the things he set before you and unafraid to take the leap. And I just love that. And I love watching it. And I love what he's doing in and through you guys. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing. Well, this concludes part 1 of a 2-part conversation with Jesse and Alta Keller. If you would like to hear more, make sure to tune in next time. Thanks for listening.